Great, I'd like to call the, are you good?
Mhm.
I'd like to call the meeting to order for Monday, December 9th, 2024 at 6 PM. The Plan Commission. Roll call, please.
Cronin,
Here.
Zagami,
Here.
Decent.
Yes.
He's online.
He's online.
He is online, okay.
Yep.
Garrett is excused, Hoffman.
Here.
Jordan's excused, and Mumford.
Here. All right.
Call the ETZ committee to order, take roll call.
Okay,
Sorry, Valerie.
that's okay. Yeah, so you got Olson,
Here,
Cronin,
Here.
Christensen,
Here.
Garrett,
Excused.
excused, Hull,
here,
and Mumford.
Here. All right, public comment. I have two here, one from Jim Pincinel. It looks like item number 6, which is a public hearing. Do you want to wait till then? Okay. And Lynn Klein. Which agenda item are you here for? 6 as well? Okay, do you want to wait till then to speak? Okay. Anybody else online or in the audience that wishes to make a comment? Second time, anybody online or in the audience that wishes to make a comment? Third time, any comments? Hearing none, we'll move on to item number 4, minutes from previous meetings. Minutes from November 11th, 2024 PC Joint ETZ meeting. This is for the PC and the ETZ.
Move to approve. Second.
So this will be for the ETZ first. So we have a motion by, oh, that'll be you.
I thought it was only one.
No, you each have to. It's the
Yeah.
same agenda. The same minutes, I guess.
If you want to go ahead first, Milt, you can, it's fine.
okay, motion for approved minutes from the November 11th, 2024 for ETZ meeting.
Move to approve.
Mark made motion second,
Second.
Troy. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes stand approved as printed.
Then for Plan Commission,
Approve.
motion by Zagami.
Second.
Second by Hoffman on the question. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Communications, disclosures and recusals. Members of the body should make any required disclosures or recusals during this time. Do we have any? Hearing none, we'll move on to item number 5, written communications received.
We have none.
Okay, public hearings. Zoning map and text amendments, conditional uses and related requests. Item number 6, an ordinance amending provisions within chapters 71 and 94 of the municipal code affecting residential driveway standards in the village of Weston and the extraterritorial zoning area of the town of Weston. We'll open the public hearing. Presentation by staff.
Yeah, this is one that Jennifer and I worked together with Mark Rockers on. Tried to clean up the driveway standards. As they have in 2015 code, it became extremely restrictive with asphalt placement particularly in relation to property lines. So if you want to go to page 28, 27.
You bet.
So the adjustments are in there in red. Trying to clean up some verbiage in there too, to just make it a little easier to interpret what the intent of this section is. 71 was included, as that's Public Works code section for driveways, meeting the public streets. If you go down to page 31, that is our setbacks table for hard surface. And that's going to show, summarize our setback changes in that table. So in the particularly the single family small and 2-family districts, we reduced those by half to allow for a little more flexibility with parking and driveways. So Any specific questions? That's right.
So just after I read through this, I just want to understand. So, for example, the street I live on, there's probably at least 3 different homes that have these U driveways. And so those are no longer allowed. Is that correct?
Those were removed, I believe, in the 2015 code.
In the 15? Okay. So those are just grandfathered, but.
Yeah, legal non-conforming. Yeah.
Okay.
I have just a question. Also in that, one of those sections that the director of public work can change the size of the driveway, but there is no limit for that. I think there should be a limit for it. Although we can do it, but you know, how many feet is that or where are we going?
I think it has are you talking about the commercial?
They didn't say the
I
commercial.
think it's on page 28. Is what you're
Correct.
referring to?
Yeah, item 2.
So there is a listed maximum, but Michael does have the ability to approve a wider driveway access based on types of vehicles and traffic patterns in the street classification. So
But
it
there's
gives
no-
him some leeway.
Yeah, he just gotta come out with the size of it. The way it's written, there is no limit and there is
Well,
there.
there is a limit. So technically, there's a maximum in there, but if they want to exceed it, it has to be approved by Michael based off of those factors. He'd have to have some kind of reasoning to do it, but it allows him to grant it. I think the only places that we've had where they've done some of that would be like Wausau Supply, I think, one of the buildings there. Just based off of how they were backing in and how he didn't want them to be on the road. So he allowed a wider driveway.
Yeah, because if there is no limit, I think it's more difficult on him, it's more challenging.
Yeah,
If there is a limit in there, then he can say,
he has maximums.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, the footnote is for industrial, commercial services, agricultural, recreation, warehousing, and distribution. 42-foot max at the property line, and then 48-foot max at the pavement edge. And then for industrial warehousing and distribution, it's 52 feet at the property line and 60 max at the street pavement.
I have a question if I could.
Yes.
What have you seen or why you think you should drop from 6 to 3 in the residential districts? And I'm talking, let's focus on the driveways. Would it be more beneficial, since we're making the changes to the other districts, to go to 6, to just have all driveways at 6? Because I ask because, as you know, in the town, we have those RRs next to SFs next to ARs. And that's very common to have them in any order next to each other. So when, I'm just wondering, is the 3-foot something you see a need for specifically? And that's the reason for the drop. Otherwise, if it's equitable to everyone, then if you're on one of those lines where your neighbor is an RR on one side of you and your single family and your other side neighbor is an AR, everybody knows it's going to be a 6-foot for a driveway. So I'm trying to get a sense as to, would it be better to go uniform? Or is there a specific issue you can address on those smaller lots?
It was specific to the smaller lots. We do see quite a few where that 6-foot, particularly in the older neighborhoods, is an extremely restrictive setback.
Okay.
So, and then we're even seeing it in some of the newer subdivisions where they just didn't accommodate for enough separation from the building to the property line. So there's no space for them to, if you look at our single family small setback is 8 feet off the property line from the side yard. So, and our pavement setback is 6 feet. So theoretically, you could get a situation, and we have had it, where that house is 9 feet off the property line and they can pave a 3-foot strip to park their bicycle on. So we're trying to get some flexibility in there for those situations where it's a tight squeeze lot. Because what's happening is we're seeing a lot of it where they're, parking on the grass and that sort of stuff in the neighborhoods.
Well,
So-
then let me flip it the other way. Why wouldn't we allow on the larger parcels just a 3-foot then?
Yeah, so like.
In other words, I'm just wondering if, whenever I look at these tables that we have, I always raise the issues of why do we have the differences? Especially because we have so many adjacent different parcels in the town. And so it's just, if your neighbor can go 3 feet from the property line on one side, but you have to go 10 or 16 or 5 or 8 or whatever it is on the other, I'm just trying to make sense as to, and so it's easy in a block of residential to understand, but I'm trying to understand the other way. And then, so I would raise that issue is, can we go that way with it? And then I would, again, the only other thing I can think of is we used to, and again, I don't know how many generations back in the code, there were the concerns about where the snow was going because of our climate here, and whether 3 feet or 6 feet or 8 feet, I remember, is that enough for the snow? If you've got adjacent driveways, are we gonna have people throwing snow onto someone else's property, which in other places in the code, it's not allowable, but I mean, so anyway, those are the issues that I was just trying to think through for the multiple lots and changes in the town. So whatever, I guess I'd like your input on what you think about that.
From that rural perspective, I'm very open to going just a uniform. I don't think there's when we get into the RR2 and the RR5s, I don't really think that there's a huge benefit to stay off of the property line a great distance. I don't know if Jennifer has some other thoughts on that from a planning perspective, but it is for uniformity's sake, I'd rather see it.
If we could make it uniform, but I'm just trying to think, is there a reason that, it does make sense to separate it? And so that's why I'm raising the question now, so that we're not in 6 months or 8 months thinking we should have maybe thought of something different. And the thing is, the encouragement of because we're talking about new construction here, new driveways, right? So we're going to see the plans and or the permits. We have driveway permits now, right? That's what we're using here.
Yep.
So someone's going to ask, is this okay, right? Is that how it happens on the new driveways? I'm assuming it's either by a plat review or someone individually comes in and says, I'm going to build on this 5 acres.
It could be somebody expanding. I think
Yeah.
with the
Could be new
larger ones,
residential.
like the AR and the rural residential, the whole idea is because you're out in the country, you don't want somebody to plop a house in their driveways and all that kind of stuff right next to the lot line. So that's why they tend to have there's a larger setback in general, just because, well, especially AR, you could have farm equipment, that kind of stuff. We don't have that much of that anymore, but they tend to have a larger setback. I mean, that you see it, it's always been there.
But I understand that, but if you're building a long road driveway back in, and you're adjacent to something that is an AR, where the driveway, how far you need to be from the property line for a portion until you get back in where you've got all your acreage, you may want to tuck it closer to a property line.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm just saying, I don't know what the right answer is, but there are reasons. And so if you said, well, you have to be at least 3 feet, you have to be at least 6 feet on both sides of the property line, and that's just what it was, I just thought that might be the time, and that would be the way to address that issue. And so the AR and the RR5, I don't know that anyone who wants to move snow and or have any type of buffer for visual or anything, no one wants to crowd the property line. But there are instances where, I'm trying to think, even across those RRs across on the east, doesn't one of those have a drive right down the property line?
Yeah.
So anyway, I guess, you know, when people start chopping up the larger portions to get back and have multiple or a building location, it's not unusual to see those drives go closer to a property line or want to be as oriented as close as they can. So I'm just thinking out loud. I'm trying to see which way makes sense or doesn't make sense. Obviously, the closer you get to a property line, the more other issues you can have. But if we're gonna go as low as 3 feet, my goodness, in a residential, you know, I guess I'm saying that's almost,
Right on it.
yeah, that's pretty close.
Roman, what about in those specifically those small lots with the 3 foot controlling runoff? I mean, do you have enough green space in 6 feet to control a house runoff adequately?
3 foot's just right about what the swale is on either side of the property line. I mean, so our code prior to 15 was, I think, a 0 foot setback.
Right.
And so we went from 0 to 6. And, you know, it just really, we end up having to really regulate and do a lot of work with that to get it to,
Okay.
you know, squeeze in there. So
So the 3 is more important than the 6 as far as what you were doing in the changing
Yeah.
from the small lots
Yeah.
to the open and rural.
yeah,
And so the 6, going from a 10 to a 6 was more just making an adjustment. It wasn't for any specifics, right?
No, it
trying
was
to be
just a
more
u-
lenient,
yeah.
yes, to bring it
More
closer to
lenient.
the property.
Yeah.
If there's a reason for it, that's fine. I just think we should make sure that it makes sense. If we're gonna differ, that's fine. If not, we should try and make it uniform. It's just easier and it seems more equitable to everybody to know where you're gonna be at a property line, if we could go equitably. So, and that, I guess, to kind of jump, that also has an implication to what you're doing with the section 7 of the proposed code, which is the section 5, I'm sorry, the outdoor storage of recreational vehicles. Because now you've got a neighborhood where if you're in an AR or an RR, you have to keep your whatevers farther off the property line than if you have the small lot. That seems counterintuitive.
yeah. So you're talking about in.
So, yeah, in section 5 as proposed, the changes to 94-1207-2D for outdoor storage.
Yep.
Because we relate back to this table, right?
Yep.
So if you're on the little lot, you can come to within 3 feet with your outdoor storage. If you're on the other side, if you're in the RR5, you have to stay 6 feet.
Right.
And again, that goes into that equitable, does that make sense? Do we just make it equal? Do we not refer to the table and just make it whatever uniform? I don't know, but we're talking about it now. We should talk about it. Because
Looking at the charts, all the setbacks are not uniform, so. For your single family, small, large, all of them, they're all different setbacks, so if you're thinking uniform, that would. You're thinking all the way through for everything?
no, but as these come up, that's when we discuss them. How many revisions ago, Jen, did we have? They were all different all over the board, and we just
Yeah.
went through and decided to try and make them as uniform in the last or the time before revision to this chart. So that's why I just say now would be another good time, since we're focusing on the driveways. If we're gonna make them uniform, we should talk about it and do it now. If there's a reason to keep it separate, that's fine, that's acceptable. But yeah, they used to be, I mean, we used to do 10-foot increments on a lot of these things that just had been in there, and we just decided to just, yeah, put whatever, so. But yeah, I guess so the only implication that I see from, so on the driveway, focusing on the driveway, if there's a reason to keep it to smaller, then that's fine. But then if we tie the outdoor storage to it, are we fine with someone on one side of the line being able to come 3 feet from the property line while the guy on the other side has to stay 6 feet? That would be the comment I would have, or that the thing that we should probably discuss or think about. Again, it's fine in a block situation if everybody's zoned the same, but we don't, you know, it's a mishmash in the town. It's very common to have these all mixed together.
Anybody else have any thoughts on that? Make it uniform or leave it as is, or?
I personally am okay with it as is. Before anybody makes a motion or anything, we do have to do the public comments, and we have a couple people that would like to speak on this, so maybe we should hear from them before we.
Absolutely.
All right, so, if nobody has anything else, I'll move on to the public comment period. So I'd first like to call up, Lynn Klein. You could state your name and address for the record.
Lynn Klein, 6304 Lawndale Street. The reason why we're here is we had the village come out. We had requested to add 11 feet onto our existing driveway and then take it out to the road. And we were told that the setbacks were too great or was not allowed or whatever. We'd have ended up with an 11 by 10 foot pad, which would have done us no good. So we are hoping that the ordinance change will allow us to be able to increase our existing driveway 11 feet more and then out to the road to match. Does that make sense?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, I think we got a good handle on what's, Jen, I don't know if you want to comment here, but you,
I could,
because it was someone from the planning department.
Yeah, so
So
the
it's-
3 of us were actually out there and we took your situation and some other ones that these guys have run across into consideration for the ordinance. Based off of what you told us. So we still need to have you guys basically submit the building permit, and then we can help you through things and make sure that everything's okay. But based off of what you were showing us, when we talked to Mark to do the adjustments, it should work, but we'll still need to have you apply for it, so you can do it in the spring. So you can apply anytime after the ordinance is basically approved,
Okay,
so.
good. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Jim Pincinot?
Sorry with other one, I'm on the comprehensive plan, so.
Oh, so not number 6?
Yeah, not 6,
Okay,
my apologies.
no worries. Any other public comments? All right, hearing none, I'm gonna go ahead and close the public hearing. Discussion and recommendation to the Board of Trustees by the Planning and the ETZ. Me personally, I like the way it's written. I understand, Mark, what you're saying about keeping it uniform, but I also see the value in having it be a little bit more of a setback in the rural areas, just being that typically a lot of those lots do tend to be a lot larger, a lot more space out there. That's just my thought, but you guys, I don't live out there. Better handle on that than I do.
Well, the driveway situation is if there's a need for it on the smaller lots to go to 3 and the other is down to 6. I don't object to that at all. If that's what we are comfortable with and what we want to do, that isn't as inequitable as to then looking at the storage thing on lots that are adjacent to each other. In my opinion, since that's on the agenda here as part of the section. So the driveway is the driveway. If uniformity doesn't make sense, that's fine, but I guess the outdoor storage has always been an issue, as everyone knows in the room, it's been around. And so I guess the equitability of that or what we're trying to do there to drop to 3 feet. I don't know how that. I don't know the residential areas where you've got the blocks, if that's a non-issue or not. And so I don't know that we've ever had anyone complain that someone has to keep their stuff farther than the others and they wouldn't know it until an issue arose. But since we were addressing it tonight, I just thought we should at least talk about it.
Yeah, and I think our proposed change in the larger zoning districts is to 6 feet versus the 3 feet, so. We would have to, I mean, it's not a significant difference, but I think what's part of this is recreational vehicle storage. You know, we've got quite a few in the smaller neighborhoods that are, you know, there's just not room there, you know, so.
I can stand to say there's probably quite a few of them that are already in violation. Nobody complains about it and everybody, I mean, neighbors talk and most people are neighborly about it, but I think this will help clean some of that up.
So.
What's your pleasure? Anybody want to take a stab at a motion?
I'll move to recommend approval to the Board of Trustee as the amendment as proposed for the Village of West.
We have a motion by Zagami. We have a second for planning.
Second.
Second by Mumper. On the question. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
Is there a motion for the ETZ to make the same changes?
Same motion.
Second,
Second.
motion made by Mark and Randy, make the same changes to the zoning code. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
All right, and then we have,
A motion to adjourn the ETZ committee.
I'll make a motion. Second.
Motion made and second to adjourn ETZ committee for November 11th. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
aye.
December 9th, excuse me. Any opposed? Motion carried, meeting is adjourned.
All righty, thank you. Yeah, I was just trying to make sure I had my place here where Jim wanted to talk. Agenda item numbers.
Here's the last one.
All right, number 8, project number 20240389. Bill Burton, PGA, on behalf of property owner East Wassa LLC, requesting a rezone from INT Institutional Zoning District to B3 General Business Zoning District on a 7.422 acre parcel currently addressed as 5500 Schofield Avenue and 5601 Sternberg Avenue. I'll open the public hearing. Presentation by applicant and or staff.
Okay, I don't think the applicant is here, so I will take this. Basically, the village sold the property to East Wassa LLC last year, and they are now proposing to rezone the property to B3 General Business because the village board allowed them to keep one of the buildings, the one in the back on Sternberg, and they are going to be renting that as some warehouse space for the time being until they can come through with their plans for the parcel. So they need to rezone to B3 General Business to allow that to happen.
Okay. Public comments. Anybody online or in the audience that wishes to make a comment? Second time, any comments? Third time, any comments? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. Recommendation from staff.
Staff recommends approval.
And then discussion and recommendation to the Board of Trustees. We do have to go through the qualifying questions. If we're ready, we can do that right now. All right, determination number one, is the proposed rezone consistent with the comprehensive plan as is required by Wisconsin statutes?
Yes.
Number two, does the rezone further the purpose and intent of this chapter?
Yes.
Three, does rezoning address any of the following that are not properly addressed on the current official zoning map? Number one, a mistake was made in mapping on the official zoning map. That is, an area is or has developed in a manner and purpose different from that for which it is mapped. If this reason is cited, it must be demonstrated that the discussed inconsistency between actual land use and designated zoning is not intended, as the village may intend to stop an undesirable land use pattern from being perpetuated. Number two, factors have changed, such as the availability of new data, the presence of new roads or other infrastructure, additional development, annexation, or other zoning changes, making the subject property more appropriate for a different zoning district. Number three, growth patterns or rates have changed, thereby creating the need for a rezone. Which one are we looking at?
2 and 3.
I agree. Item number four, does the proposed zoning district maintain the desired consistency of land uses, land use intensities, and land use impacts as related to the environs of the subject property?
Yes.
Yes. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to recommend the approval of the rezone request and forward the recommendation onto the village board for the December 16th, 2024 meeting agenda.
Motion by Mumper, second by Hoffman. On the question? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Number nine, project number 2024-0392. Corey Schlosser, on behalf of the owner Stainless Holdings LLC, requesting an amendment to conditional use permit project number 2023-0083 to modify the original proposal and reduce the construction footprint at 4305 Transport Way, Weston. I'll open the public hearing. Presentation by applicant and or staff.
Josh, do you want me to tee this up for you? Okay. Carrie and myself, have been working with Josh Weisman, property owner and operator. And essentially, what Josh is asking is to do the project in a first phase, and then essentially have the second half of the property shovel ready for what would be phase two. Everything has been essentially completed with the site. We gave him occupancy, I think, late September, something like that, on the four buildings that he has. So, and I guess kind of through conversation is when we Carrie and I were like, okay, we gotta look at this from how do we want this project to finish? You know, how does the plan commission want this to look if it were to sit there? So, Josh.
So, yeah, my goal and ideal plan is to eventually get to the original plan that was approved back in 2023 with 3 additional buildings to the east of the existing 3 finished buildings. That's still the goal, still the plan. However, I will not be able to complete that by the end or by the time that my current building permit expires. So I'm hoping to get approval for what I'm calling phase 1, which is the original 3 buildings. And the land portion that buildings 4 through 6 will go on will be made ready to build at a future date.
Okay, if you want to go to page 50.
Thank you.
That'll be exhibit A. I misspoke, my apologies. I said 4 buildings, or just 3 there. If you zoom in, the entirety of the 3 buildings are paved around there. And then to the east of that existing pavement, there is an area of road base, prepped for pavement. And then about a 16-inch drop off from there down to what is the current excavated site for the rest of the buildings. Correct me if I'm wrong, Josh, but there was a lot of material that you had to over excavate to.
Yeah, most of the fills, or most of what we had to take out is still there. And that will be removed, because it has been determined that it is not buildable fill. So those spoil piles will be removed. The shaded area, is a proposed paving, for the simple fact that, we have that road base already there, impact, or compacted, as part of what was done for, again, the first 3 buildings, rather than take all that out and bring in dirt and plant that. A suggestion was made to pave it, because eventually, when we do get to the additional 3 buildings, that will be paved anyway. It would also allow for customers using those east side units, more area to back in and, be more convenient for them.
What is your timeline for the second part of the project, or phase 2 as you're calling it?
I don't have a timeline as of right now.
That's what I was afraid you were gonna say. And my next question is, if I can still on, what is staff's opinion on this curb issue then? Because that, to me, is the complexity here. If he doesn't develop it, it sounds like you'd want curb, but you don't have any indication of any timeline or possibility that he will, or, so how do you address it? What is your thought?
Well, so this was one of those situations where the curbing got left off for this project, so there is no curb on it right now. So my suggestion was, as a trade-off, because you're amending this whole plan, was to have them put some type of mountable on the finished portion. And typically on these kinds of projects, we wouldn't require it on the expansion portion. Because he would be expanding into it someday, somebody will.
So if he ultimately does what he's, the phase 2, you would not want curb, is that correct?
Phase 2, we would want curb,
would want
but
curb,
you'd look at
okay.
the site and it currently doesn't have it. So my suggestion was as a trade-off, because basically he went originally from 6 buildings to 3, to have them finish the curbing on basically, because you can see where it comes in. It basically doesn't go around any of the buildings that are there now. And then on that gray strip, there wouldn't be any off to the east, because that would be his expansion area.
Roman, you said that there's a drop, there's of roughly 16 inches.
Oh, yeah.
So is that gonna have to get filled level at the point of?
Our proposal was just to have that topsoiled and seeded
Okay, so,
area,
so,
as opposed to bring in the 16 inches of fill and then topsoil.
right, so how does that work in the future when the second phase goes? How do you access the other portion if it's 16 inches lower?
From a construction standpoint,
From a occupant standpoint, if that second lift is 16 inches lower, is that ramping the asphalt down?
no,
It'll be
he'll,
filled in, it will be level.
Okay, that's
All the
what
way
I was asking,
across.
okay,
yeah, because that's bottom of footing elevation is where he's
Okay.
essentially at.
okay, that's what I was asking.
That drop off.
Can I ask why this was approved without curbing? What was the story there? Was that something that the plan commission did, or was it just missed on the plan?
Well, it was missed by everyone. For staff, there was a comment that there was curb there. So
Okay.
Michael or I didn't recheck it. This was back when Aaron was looking at the curbing, and we had a couple of projects where the curb was basically missed because we saw that note that there was curb. So we had this project, and I think there was one, well, the inner city
There's curb at the entrance and then it stops. So it didn't continue around the perimeter of the pavement.
So the issue is now with him breaking it up into two phases. If we don't require that to be done. Phase one would not have curb, but phase two would be required to have curb. Is that?
Well, most likely phase two wouldn't, because we would do what was already there. That's typically been the way that it's been on a project like that.
Okay.
Are we taking over the road?
Taking over the
The
road.
village gonna take over the road?
There,
That's a different.
that's a whole, that's on the other
No,
side.
item.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about those roundabout, that cul-de-sac they have.
That's already there. So there's an existing,
Nova
Is that-
Truck Wash is
Nova.
Truck
adjacent.
washes. Yeah.
They're adjacent to the east in the cul-de-sac there.
So is the village gonna snow plow in there?
we do anyway, because they need access into Nova, which is the building that's shown on
Parcel to the east.
the parcel to the east. They come right off the cul-de-sac.
So we already plow this,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but the shaded area would not be ours.
You're talking about curbing around the entire parking lot, correct?
So it would be, well, I suppose it's up to you guys, but
You don't have a
typically we
curb.
would have required it around everything, yes.
You don't have a curb, the edge of that blacktop, they're all gonna break after the first.
Well, they have curb in, but they don't have it anything beyond.
Beyond the entrance, correct?
Yeah, so from.
I can bring it down to you.
Yeah, so from here, the curbing stops essentially right here. And it should have continued around
Inside the property.
and then same thing on the east side, it stops here and it should have continued around this way. However, if we require curb here because of phase one, then this would have curb there. And then the next proposed building would be on the east side of that curb.
So
So you wouldn't have curb on.
in the
those.
spirit of matching the rest of the neighborhood, here's my question. Does Nova Truck Wash, Super Lettering, Cummins, the commercial building next to Jaegers and something else, do any of them have curbing around
Oh, and
them?
you're setting yourself up here because some of those buildings were previous buildings before the curb was adopted.
I understand, a lot of those haven't been there that long though.
Okay, but.
Yeah, they, actually,
You
they
gotta remember,
were before me.
hey, you gotta remember,
Not the strip mall next to Jaegers.
No, but that would have curb.
I think the building out front, Lockery's building, I believe has curb on it.
Does it?
I believe so.
Yeah, it does.
The building, Cummins, I do not believe they have curb,
They
but
don't.
you also have to remember, if,
Been there.
if we allow somebody to get away with it on a new building, the next building permit that we have in, be prepared that it's gonna be the chain effect.
Sure,
We already know that from the bank building.
right.
So, cause I mean, it's an expense and we all know that. And Super Lettering, I believe his parking lot is curbed on where the resident or where customers would park. I do not believe the back is.
Okay.
We have a ballpark as to the financial impact. Mr. Schlosser. My only thought was, if I were him, I'd be thinking,
What's better? What's worse?
well, what's better, what's worse, but I'd also be thinking of the financial impact. I'm sure he put pencil to paper on numbers for, like anybody does, and he had a cost number in mind, right? Which now is not gonna be that number if we, I see both sides of this, I see because it wasn't his fault that it wasn't done that way initially, right? That's on the village, right? Not that I wanna point fingers, but I just wanna bring up that aspect of it, because I don't really know, I don't have a sense, like, and I know it's.
I have no idea. That's Michael's realm.
Yeah, I was afraid that you were gonna say. I was gonna say, the person that I'd like to ask is not sitting here. I don't know what that number is either, right? Is that, because, I feel bad for Mr. Schlesser in that obviously you weren't probably expecting that, right? I don't wanna speak for
Yeah,
you.
Corey is with Aria, I'm Josh, I'm the
I'm
owner.
sure, Josh.
Yeah, so, but no, I have no idea how much it costs.
Whatever you're thinking, put a zero behind it.
I know that.
Curb itself, $10 per foot.
My only concern was, do the economics of the plan support the additional cost that he might be?
It's gonna cost them more because those asphalt gonna break down, the edge of the asphalt. Purpose of curb is to support the asphalt, not to break.
So Jen, when you say multiple curb, are you suggesting that like they just did the curb on East Jelnik over there? That's a flat curb.
Yeah, it's
Is
like,
that-
it's just something to basically, like Husheng said, keep people from breaking it off or water getting underneath it, wrecking the parking lot. And it finishes it. There's a more finished look to it. So I don't remember when they changed, but they allowed like a mountable type curb instead of
Multiple
straight
makes
up.
sense because, I mean, with us plowing, I mean,
Yeah, it's just some type of curbing, cause a mountable is allowed now. It wasn't originally. Some of the projects from 15 years ago, they had to have just regular reject curb. But that had changed in the 2015 code.
Would you be okay with putting on multiple curb on everything except for that, the edge that's you're gonna expand into when you do phase 2?
Which is what?
Roman, did you wanna show me?
So from, because where it stops here, right? To the west along that front pavement line and then south. I don't know how that would tie in with the drainage into the retention pond there, but there is drainage swales and riprap here and here, and I believe over here as well. But like we had discussed with those, I mean, we were seeing the erosion take place on those, on that pavement and undermining it already. But that would be, I don't know what linear footage that is. I can't get zoomed in far enough on my map.
I prefer not, put curb all the way around. It is planted, it's finished.
.62 shows the landscaping and drainage plan.
62 feet.
62, page 62.
Page 62.
Oh, thank you.
Roman, is there a curb out on,
Transport?
yes, no,
Yeah.
not on transport, on, the ones that by RGB out there. Do they have-
Oh, Ryan Street Rentals?
Yeah, Ryan, are they putting curb in there?
The same comment was made on that site plan as well. From a review standpoint.
So yes or no, they are,
I don't believe there's any on the approved site plan.
Is there curbing at the front though of that?
yes.
On Ryan Street, there's curbing at the front there too. Okay.
And there was no modifications to the existing access at that site. But it is mountable, or I shouldn't say mountable, it's reject curb on Ryan Street and where that driveway attaches.
Jen, so you mentioned something about a comment. Was there a comment on the plans, but it wasn't on the plans, or how did that work? Or was it a comment on an internal form?
So we have an internal staff review, and on the form, it said curb was present. So he didn't specify that there
Who
was.
did that form?
So Aaron was looking at the
Okay.
curbing at that time. I thought Michael was, but Michael had deferred that to Emily and it got lost in the translation. of moving people.
We have that sorted now with development meetings, so it doesn't happen again, but it was noted as curb. And I would assume it was probably assumed there was curb present, so it was noted as such.
All right, where are we at right now? Are we to public comments yet? No?
No. I think-
Okay. So before we get too much further off in the weeds here, is there anybody online or in the audience that wishes to make a public comment? Second time, any comments? Third time, any comments? Hearing none, I'm gonna close the public hearing.
Oh, Steve.
I just
Yes,
had a quick question, Jim Constantine, 512 Rose Street. So if you got curb coming in off the street, it couldn't have been an accident, right? They had to be on a plan or had to be somewhere. How do you have curb for 15 feet, but not for 1,500 feet? I have no opinion one way or the other. I think it's crap that we missed it.
That's
On
how they
multiple sites.
proposed it.
I understand that, but somewhere in the plan it had to be that way, like the concrete guy doesn't just pump curb on there wherever he wants. You're gonna put it where you want to plan.
No, REI designed it that way. And it was missed.
So they designed it with just 15 feet of curb or however. many you got.
Correct, yep.
That's what it was designed for. Okay, thank you.
okay, any other comments? Hearing none, I'm gonna close the public hearing. Recommendation from staff, I think staff is recommending approval with the comments about the curbing, correct?
Correct.
So that brings us back to where we're at. My opinion, and I'm just one, we missed it the first time. I think he did his due diligence coming in here and trying to notify us that this project wasn't gonna be done. He's trying to do the proper thing, get his project split up into 2 phases and move this along. This is on us. I don't know how we can sit here with and ask him after the fact to do something when he already had it approved, probably had his banknotes done. This is a big ask.
I'm just gonna take that.
And unfortunately, the
That's my
people,
opinion.
I mean, it sounds like we've got a process in place to ensure this doesn't happen again. And a couple of the folks who were here during that time aren't here anymore as well, so.
Either that or the village eats it.
Mhm.
That was my other thought, if we really wanted. I just have a hard time going back to someone after they've, like, I agree with you, as a business owner, they had to have sat down and said, you know, what is this gonna cost? What are we gonna? Now you turn those numbers upside down after they've already started investing, right? It's not like you can walk away at this point, right?
Well, I think you should see what the plan said, is the plan was done by engineer, and the engineer saying curb.
The engineer didn't put curb in,
They did it?
No,
only at the entrance.
we just did.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
that was pretty clear when I read it. I said to myself, whose fault is this?
Yeah.
And my gut kept saying to me, this isn't on us, or on the village, right?
So we approved the plan without the curb. Right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. We can
So-
say, okay, he doesn't have to do it, but at the same time, if he doesn't do it, it's gonna cost him more money to fix the blacktop. Because the snow plow go to the edge of it, and he's gonna break all the concrete in that area. And that's a fact, it's gonna happen. So, it's up to them.
I was just bringing it to your attention so that you knew, so.
Okay.
The opportunity to do something now, or just realize that going forward, it won't have curb.
Now, he's, correct me if I'm wrong, is he gonna have to resubmit for phase 2?
Yeah, he'll have to go through the conditional use.
So just so you're aware, that's probably gonna be required to have curbing on it,
I don't know how you.
unless you come up with some sort of break. So we're not gonna I don't think we can require it for phase 1, but probably behoove you to put it in, just something to think about.
And I mean, by the time he brings it back in, I have no idea what that code could look like. I mean,
Right. I understand. Okay, so was the curbing the portion of this that we needed to discuss as far as
Phase 1, phase 2.
revised elevations and drainage plan, or is that a separate?
No, that was just bringing it up at that point because he
Okay.
was asking for a change from what you originally approved with the multiple buildings. So he's basically asking for an elevation change and then just a site plan change essentially, only doing the first phase. Carrie did have a note about the grading. About the fill. Bring it up to grade, but
That was her big question with the proposal of leaving it 16 inches down. Was that acceptable in the eyes of the plan commission versus filling in that entire area? Because you would have to truck in
well, they're gonna have to seed it.
material. Correct. So, and the proposal from REI is 3 to 4 inches of topsoil and seeding it. That's to have it a finished.
For the time being,
Yep.
until phase 2 is decided to be.
Yep.
Okay.
But then with phase 2, Commissioner Hoffman asked, and I believe you said it would all be brought up to the same grade.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, we'd have to take out everything we put in there in order to get the foundations, if you will.
The 2 or 3 inches that you would put in, so it's not such a big difference now.
It'd be 2 to 3 to 4 inches of topsoil that would need to be extracted, or if it was brought up to match elevation, it would be 16 inches approximately of fill that would need to go in and then be extracted when phase 2 happens.
Okay.
So all of that would have to be trucked in off-site.
Okay.
So from an expense standpoint, that's where the proposal was, to have that just topsoiled and seeded.
To help keep costs down.
I
Yep.
personally could not justify asking them to bring it up to finish grade.
Okay.
It's an extremely large area and, but it's not my conditional use permit. It's up to you guys. So,
Okay.
Josh, do you have to worry about, with that being down like that, do you have to worry about any of your clients, customers driving off of that currently?
Potentially.
Okay.
Again, the additional blacktop.
is that a 10-foot strip?
Probably 12 feet. Knowing that we wouldn't want to go
Page
all the
50.
way, all the way out to where that fourth building would eventually be, to build up to it. And again, having that road base already there compacted, again, not pulling all that out
Right.
and seating. But either temporary curbs can be installed, or snowplow
Stakes or.
stakes.
Anybody have anything else like that? You have to go through the determination on this. Item number 1, is the proposed conditional use consistent with the comprehensive plan, this chapter, and all other plans, programs, and ordinances adopted by the village?
Yes.
Yes. The proposed conditional use in its proposed location and as depicted on the required site plan will not result in a substantial or undue adverse impact on nearby property, the character of the neighborhood, environmental factors, traffic factors, parking, public improvements, public property or rights of way, or other matters affecting the public health, safety, or general welfare, either as they now exist or as they may in the future be developed. As a result of the implementation of the provisions of this chapter, the comprehensive plan, or all other plans, programs, and ordinances adopted by the village.
Yes.
Okay. Does the proposed conditional use maintain the desired consistency of land uses, land use intensities, and land use impacts as related to the environs of the subject property?
Yes.
Yes. Is the proposed conditional use located in an area that will be adequately served by and will not impose an undue burden on any of the improvements, facilities, utilities, or services provided by public agencies serving the subject property. Yes.
Yes.
Do the potential public benefits of the proposed conditional use outweigh potential adverse impacts of the proposed conditional use after taking into consideration the applicant's proposal and any requirements recommended by the applicant to ameliorate such impacts?
Yes.
Yes. I'll entertain a motion.
So the next page of your document
Oh.
has the. Basically, so it basically ties it to the site plan.
So you're talking about number one?
Yeah, so those would be the conditions. They're basically the standard ones that were last one.
Okay.
We need to reference these in the motion. Or is it not necessary?
It's actually, so the draft one that I had in there, it's already in that, so if you're okay with
So
it.
no? Okay.
It's just if there's anything that you want to change, but I didn't have anything about that curb in there, so.
Just reading through this real quick.
So it basically states that if he makes any further changes that he has to bring it back.
Okay.
I'll move to approve the amendment to conditional use permit number 2024-0392 at 4305 Transport Way to amend the construction footprint and approve the revised elevations and drainage plan with the added condition that 3 to 4 inches of topsoil and associated seeding be added. And if there are any further changes, it be brought back for approval.
Motion by Mumford,
Second.
second by Zagami. On the question? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, Josh, correct? Okay, yep, thank you.
Good luck.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman,
Dave's gonna be-
Dave's, I'm sorry, what was that, Dave?
I need to sign off.
Okay, sounds good. So if we could just.
All right, thank you.
Yep, thank you, Dave. Signed off at 7:03.
You have one more public hearing. Do we have a quorum?
Yeah.
Four of us. Yep, we're good. Okay, item number 10, public hearing on amendment to the Village of Weston Comprehensive Plan. And this is, Jim, is this the one you wanted to speak on? Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and open the public hearing. Presentation by staff.
Wait, Mark got here, so.
Well, he's kind of staff in a way.
Yeah, so. Yeah.
Do you want to come up to
Welcome.
the table?
Sure. Where do you want me?
You could come up here if you wanted, and
Sure, absolutely.
then you would have a spot to sit your computer.
It's been a while. I haven't been in this building yet.
Right.
And I
this is your
haven't met
first
Jamie in
time.
person.
I was gonna say, I don't think I've seen you in person since we did probably the last comp plan up when we were at Dale's.
Weston,
Yeah.
yeah, Weston Avenue.
Well, good evening. I was literally in the neighborhood, working for the Wausau School District, and you'll read about it in the news, so I'll leave it at that. Reason for the comprehensive plan amendments are laid out in your packet. One prominent reasons the need or interest in incorporating the hard work that was done on the park and open space plan, comprehensive outdoor recreation plan last year, into the confines of the overall comprehensive plan. So there are changes to both volume 1, which is our conditions and issues volume, to integrate updated overview of the current park system, and changes to volume 2 and our park rec and rec chapter there to integrate the park plan that was adopted by the board, village board, I believe, following a committee recommendation about a year ago now. The second set of amendments that are being brought forward are having to do with making sure that the land use chapter and the transportation chapter are brought up to date with all the corridor plans that have been adopted since the comprehensive plan was last updated in 2016. So that's the Camp Phillips corridor plan, the Weston Avenue corridor plan, and Schofield Avenue corridor plan. So those included recommendations, often different from the future land use recommendations of the 2016 comp plan that we're working with staff now able to fold into the comp plan. So that's the second set of amendments that are before you. Third set of amendments have to do with the significant changes that have occurred in the world economy and regional economy over the last 8 or 9 years. Significant shifts in economic development where we buy things, where we go to work, have occurred over that period of time. Significant changes to the dynamics of housing development have occurred over that period of time, and a heightened recognition that we and by we I mean not only Weston, we just don't have enough housing units to accommodate the people that are desiring housing, and the housing that we do have is too expensive for the rest of them. So acknowledging some of that, and in particular updating the housing chapter to reflect some of the interest and opportunities to grow more housing units within Weston. There's a related recommendation in the land use chapter to be a little bit more general as to how we classify areas for future housing development. The 2016 comprehensive plan is in certain cases very specific. Here's where we want the single family. Here's where we want the duplexes. Here's where we want the multifamily. The new plan is a little bit more general in identifying areas, not necessarily based on how many units are in a building, but whether it's relatively low, medium, or higher density. That's a change in the proposed comprehensive plan. And on the whole, I think those are the main motivators for the proposed amendments to the plan. The idea is to get it a little bit more up to date, particularly in the land use, transportation, and housing chapters, to your current set of more detailed plans and emerging trends in those areas. You'll talk a little bit later in the agenda that this is part of a incremental update to the plan that is being proposed. Every 10 years, the comprehensive plan needs to be fully updated. That can happen in phases as opposed to all in one year. And the idea is that this plan would be updated in phases as well. So I think with that, I'll turn it back to the Plan Commission Chair, and you can go ahead and continue the hearing. Thank you.
All right, anything else from staff or Mark? No? Okay. Public comment period. I believe Jim would like to speak.
Yeah. Jim Pascal, 502 Arrow Street. So I don't know if this is, I see there's changes in here, and I don't know if there's supposed to be more changes or if this is all that we are changing yet. But I think we've got to change it a lot more.
So that'll actually come in the update. So we talked about it at the Plan Commission, and what Mark said, we basically have to do and look at this every 10 years because a lot has changed since the 2015 plan. So further on the agenda, the Plan Commission and the board, we've budgeted for a 2-year project to update the comprehensive plan. So we would start next year with updating the conditions and issues, so bringing it up to current census numbers, things like that, getting that data, doing the public participation portion of the project to find out, have the citizens' needs changed, has business needs changed, and then get into the visions and directions, which is kind of the meat of it. This previous plan, when we did it, the focus at that time was Camp Phillips Center, the big park down, the sports complex, which is now Tommy docks, so we've changed a lot of directions. So we'll have to see what we need to focus on going forward. So this right now is just to bring into all those plans that we have done when you were on the plan commission with the corridor plans, bringing those into, to kind of allow us to continue developing out there while we're working on the plan update. Because we put a lot of work into those plans. And also there had been some housing changes, some housing studies that had been done. I think there was 3 different housing studies that have been done in the last 4 years.
So I would say, Jim, that this represents a full update to the Parks and Rec chapter. It represents a full update to the Housing and Neighborhoods chapter. It represents a pretty complete update to the Land Use chapter. And that's about it. And so
Well, I guess all my comments are valid, then I'll move forward. Okay. So page 76.
you're in the Vision and Directions, Volume 2, Jim.
Yeah, I don't know, I went through this twice, I had to go through it again on Sunday, because this is different pages than it was when it was originally emailed out, but. From the part that inventory. Oh, yeah, that's it there. Yeah, so this is, if we're updating parks and parks is all updated, all of these photos are ancient. We spent $750,000 replacing all of our playground structures. And if we're gonna update this in the park section, we'll basically put the playground thing in there and a new. Signage for the parks, like the Williams Park one, I don't have the old school sign, we spent money on all the signage for the parks. That should be in here. The draft date says October of 24, and those photos are October of 14. Silver Creek Memorial Access, which is 1 or 2 more slides down here. That has paved parking, isn't listed as an amenity, but it is for the other kayak launch on Ross Sound or wherever it's listed. And the lakes that are listed are outside of the village, so I don't know if that has to get changed or if we still list lakes, even though they aren't in our village. Then the school areas are right after that. We had this little $35 million green Turner outfit pop up here the other day. And that's not in there. I think that probably should be in there. Because it's an asset to our community. Page 89. And maybe it's just because it's a draft one, but that table was super blurry. Maybe it's just the copy that got sent out was very low resolution. I'm not sure, but you can't blow it up and see it even if you have both eyes at work. Page 142. Carrie Edmondson, no longer is employed at the Village of Weston. Page 147. We're replacing the 2016 plan, strike the number 2006 and replace with 2016. This is we're replacing the 2006 plan, which we are not.
Well, doesn't this replace, this would be the 2016 plan that would replace the 2006 plan?
Sure, but in this document, it says we're replacing the 2006 plan or not. We're replacing a 2016 plan, because it was updated in 2000.
What page are you referencing, Jim?
Page 147.
It's the first sentence.
But I do think that's true because this plan does replace the 2006 plan as the 2016 plan.
Are we writing the 2026 plan?
No, not yet.
Oh.
I know that's, but I think that is correct.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
Just 'cause this
like
is
a
an-
9-year, 10-year update or something?
but this would be an update to the 2016 plan, likely the final update. I don't know why we would have any other additional updates because now we would move into the new one.
Okay, cool. Page 167. In the table, under responsibilities, it lists the village relations department. Do we have that?
I don't think we.
We did in 2016.
Yeah, that was essentially what Renee, a position that Renee was holding, but we don't any longer.
So we should maybe update that.
So, so here's where I'll press pause, Jim, because we have, except for making sure we get things that are completely wrong corrected, we have not touched and don't intend to touch the economic development chapter for probably a couple of years.
So if the department doesn't exist, it's probably pretty wrong, right?
We can correct it now. I'm not saying we can't, but I'm just saying all that stuff will be fixed eventually within the next couple of years when we get to a full rewrite of all of the chapters, which we have not done.
Page 174. The municipal center campus as described looks significantly different. In fact, that was on the agenda tonight. Oriented building, I don't think it's viable to house a business incubator in that location in its current state. It may have been when this was written, but not now. I don't know that the current municipal center facility can support that.
Jim,
I wouldn't disagree with you, Jim, but I just, I'll just reiterate that, you know, there is an intent, if not next year, the year after that, to update this entire chapter and fix everything that's not current policy.
Perfect, and just please take my comments as for future notice when you update this in a year or 2 years or 5 years from when we hire you to do that.
Sounds good, Jim.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna pause you for just a second. So to his point, I just wanna make sure that so the purpose of this tonight, are we updating the entire comprehensive plan or
No.
just parks?
Just part,
Cause the agenda
No.
item says comprehensive plan.
but it's the portions of the plan. So there's portions of it being amended. So I did hand out. So I mean, the major one is the maps have been amended. We're not doing a full-blown amendment.
Correct.
We're integrating the future land use map, the transportation map. The chart changed, so as Mark said, it gives some flexibility in some of those areas that are kind of on. In some of those areas, we didn't know exactly which way they would go, so we have these flex districts that gives the plan commission a little bit more leeway when someone's requesting something. Say over by the County J interchange area, some of those areas along the corridors that we're not sure that, well, that spot in between where the municipal center is and probably where just past where Quick Trip is, where there's some vacant land there. Is that residential? Is it commercial? What exactly should it be? So it gives us some flexibility there. So really, it's only the portions. I mean, it's marked up. The plan is marked up. That's the only sections that we're addressing.
Okay.
So it's the corp plan being integrated into it. The future land use section being updated, the transportation section being updated, and the housing section being updated.
So
We didn't look at economic development.
I understand, and I guess my question is, if that's the case, how come all of this got put into our packet? Like, did the whole plan just get put into the packet, or, cause there's a bunch of stuff, and I'm not discounting what Jim's saying, there's a
The
bunch.
directions did, yes.
Okay.
That portion of it. So.
Cause I had questions about this when I looked through it too, I mean, and I didn't get a chance to look at this till yesterday, cause I was on vacation all last week, but so when I pulled this up and I started paging through it, I sat and thought to myself, okay, I don't even fully understand what I'm approving here, and as I look through, there is a lot of things in here that are not updated, and I understand that we have things that we're gonna look at. But for me, it came down to, okay, what are we approving and why is there 307 pages here that I'm looking at? Because I wasn't gonna go through this page by page and say that, hey, this is a bunch of stuff that needs to be fixed when it wasn't even something that was being updated. So then I'm questioning, well, why was it put in the packet?
But the corp wasn't previously part of the comp plan, so the corp that was approved, that is approved by the board would now be a part of the comp plan. So going forward, it would be a part as it all got adopted. So like the piece about some of it that's not updated, those things weren't updated when the corp got adopted. They are now, and they'll then be updated, but we're at the end of our 10-year span too. So there's gonna be
Right.
things that aren't updated because we're at the end of the 10-year span.
We should change 10 years to 5 years, Mark. With today, things change overnight. I think 10 years is just too long, in my opinion. Should be 5 years.
It's.
I'm not trying to insult anybody here, but when I got this and I looked through it, I'm sitting here going, where do I even start with this? Because it's a lot to read over a very short time span. And as I got 5 pages in and I was like, what got updated?
So
And I'm not like, again, I'm not trying to insult, but I'm trying to understand.
I actually sent it out 2 months ago.
What?
You all got it on email. We talked
And
about.
I
it at the
apologize, but
last
I've-
meeting.
Then we could let you know exactly what chapters are updated, but in the conditions and issues volume, and I'm sorry to interrupt Jim's time, I'm sure he'll get back to it. But in the conditions and issues volume, volume 1, the only updates are to the Parks and Recreation, that chapter, to reflect the new corp plan, comprehensive outdoor recreation plan adopted last year. So in that whole volume, that's the only thing that's changing. In volume 2, vision and directions, which is the kind of future looking volume of the plan. What's changing are the future land use map and the table that describes that map, the future transportation system map, the whole housing and neighborhoods chapter, and then scattered pages of other chapters where we've shown marked changes to correspond with those other ones I just listed. The rest of the plan is yet to be touched, really, since 2016.
So when you say you updated the park plan, it was only the corp portion of the park and rec plan. correct?
Yeah, whatever they had approved
So,
in the
which
court.
would mean, which is why none of these photos or anything like that have been updated.
Correct.
Correct?
All they did was take the plan from Rettler and incorporate it into that's what took so long too, because
Okay.
it was in a different format. So we had to redo the whole thing to make it fit into the comp plan.
Aside from formatting, the corp that you see represented in what's in front of you is the same as the corp that was adopted last year.
Okay. Jim, do you have anything else you'd like to add, or?
I mean,
Are we-
hate to
I
have-
understand.
If it matters, but like, I don't understand if this entire plan is a big plan, right, and we put corp into it, then shouldn't that populate and go back on and say, hey, look, well, yeah, so we just updated the parks part, right? Corporate outdoor recreation plan, right, comprehensive outdoor recreation plan. If we did that, why isn't that in here? Like, why do we have old pictures of stuff and it says we're gonna replace the swing sets? That's one of the goals, I don't know, page 210 or something.
I'm happy to drop in new photos if I've provided new photos, but all I did.
Right?
No,
No,
The
those,
corp was done over a year ago, so that project was done this past summer. So they've actually implemented a piece of the corp. So we don't have, that would be in the next version, the conditions and issues would have all that new stuff. It would say that you updated the parks, in 2024, that kind of thing. There'd be no new photos.
What page does the corp start on, Jen?
So you've got a couple different documents. Like you said, the first one is, so it starts at chapter 9. I don't know where it is on. I printed it off.
I mean, is there a page in the packet though that you can reference so that we
Yeah,
can?
I'm going. So on 75 is where the chapter 9 Parks and Recreation. So that's the conditions and issues volume.
Show of hands, is anybody else struggling to understand what exactly was updated here? All right. I'm sorry. Jim, I don't think I think we all get you. Because I'm at the same spot right now. I don't understand what was done here. At all.
these pages were taken right from the corp. These are what were approved in the corp and we're just incorporating them into the comp plan.
Yeah, so the Parks and Rec Committee last year worked with Rutler to create the corp, and the board approved it in November of 23. So once we received that back, we incorporated the corp that was approved by those two bodies into this document. So that's all we're doing. That document already exists. Sean's been using it for a year for his requirements that he has to have for the DNR.
So when will this entire portion of the comprehensive plan be re-updated?
So the next item on the agenda, and we talked about this probably 2-3 months ago, I talked to you about needing to have to do that 10-year.
Yes, and I do remember.
So we plan to do it in a 2 years phase for budgeting purposes and just for time.
Mhm.
So next year would be the conditions and issues. So basically, staff will work with Mark to update all our census numbers from 2020 or 2020. And then go through and update to things that have already occurred in the village. We'll work on that public participation piece. That will then feed into the following year, which will be the visions and directions, which is the second part, which has basically that future land use map. We'll kind of look at that to see if there's any changes. Most likely, you're not going to have to change that because we've looked at it multiple times. But there may be other things that come up from that survey that we don't know about that the public may want, or a board member may want, or a commissioner may want us to look at. That'll be flushed out through that planning process over the next 2 years. So there will be a brand new document that will get approved in 26 or early 27.
A brand new 200-some page document, correct? Okay.
Big document. It'll be a big document. We're required to meet to have different elements of the comprehensive plan. So those are the different chapters that are there. And it basically looks at all facets of the village.
Jim, anything else that you'd like to add or?
No, it sounds like we're not actually overhauling it, like, we're just.
It's just some minor updates.
We're just basically, I mean, I need to get that land use map to where it's at so that we can use it going forward. Because it's not consistent with the corridor plans that we've done. Where you guys are actually looking at the corridor more in depth. So this will now have that's basically what we use the most out of the entire plan, is that future land use map. And Michael uses the transportation section.
Kind of creates a legal problem if you have corridor plans with updated recommendations.
Right.
And your bigger, broader comp plan has out-of-date recommendations. You know, the question is, which one do we look at? And so the main idea here is, let's bring them all in harmony with one another so that the future land use map and the comprehensive plan is consistent with what you guys have already approved for those corridor plans.
I mean, I hate to say it, but are we shooting ourselves in the foot every time we do an update? We better off just writing a plan and letting it sit for 7 years and then going and doing an update all at once, done. Because it feels like we get into a situation where everything's piecemeal and we end up in this situation where.
It probably won't happen again because we looked at those corridors more in depth. I mean, the only corridor that we haven't really looked at, well, maybe 2 corridors, would be Business 51. And we're probably not gonna look at that until after
Until the DOT
TIF
rebuilds.
Well, and the TIF districts close and how you wanna handle that.
Yeah, I guess this effort was intended to kind of catch up a little bit on big changes that have occurred, including your corridor plans and the housing market. If you and the board approve the scope of work that we have in mind, next year we will tackle all of volume one and nothing else as part of the plan. And if you continue with that in 2026, we'll tackle all of the rest of volume two.
Okay,
So it won't be as piecemeal as what you're feeling today.
sure. I'm sorry, I don't mean to.
Yeah.
I just look at this document and it just
It's
feels. so-
overwhelming.
It is
Yeah,
very.
yes, I get it. Yeah. Yeah, if you're not clear on what's changing and what's not, it's overwhelming. And then, you know, it's like, well, why did you change this? And you left this out of date stuff, you know, there. We could have done maybe a better job of communicating that. What pieces were updated and what pieces were being included for context, I guess, for lack of a better reason.
Okay. So essentially this current plan is gonna be, this will probably be the last update we make to it, is that
Yeah,
correct?
we won't bring it back.
And it's,
for-
it's done. We'll have an entirely new document by the end of
Like I said,
2026.
there's a lot of ideas that won't carry through to the next.
Absolutely. Okay. It's a pleasure.
Do we have to close our public hearing? I
Yes.
don't know that
Yep.
we closed it.
It wasn't on here.
Yep, second page.
I have A, B, C, and D. Okay, I can close the poll. Is it supposed to be in there?
I don't know. I technically don't have to put all that stuff on.
I'm sorry.
I probably should just remove it for the sake of that.
All right, I'll close the public hearing. Discussion and action by Plan Commission.
So you're required to recommend the changes by resolution. So there is a resolution in the packet that, a draft resolution, that would then, if you approve it, would get sent to the board next week. They are holding a public hearing also.
Okay. What's your pleasure? There's gotta be a recommended language in here somewhere. I gotta find it.
Yeah, I have one. Just lost my
Do we need
spot.
to call out any specifics or can we move to approve as presented?
So, yeah, the resolution will actually have the document attached to it, so you just adopt the resolution.
And here it said I track this stuff to move forward with changes in the plan.
You just have to reference the resolution number, which is 2024 PC 0.
Yeah, you would just approve the resolution.
I'll move to approve resolution number 2024-025 as presented.
Is that the correct resolution number?
That didn't sound right.
That's what I got on my page.
Right up.
Was handed out.
Oh, no.
It's that one up there.
It's not the one that I
Is
handed
that the
out.
one? Oh, sorry, this was on the trailhead. Okay.
24 PC.
Roy,
20
it's on the screen right behind you.
C 001.
Move to approve resolution number 2024-PC-001 as
All right.
presented.
Motion by Mumper,
Second.
second by Zagami. On the question? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. All right, new business, number 11, discussion and action on work order number 20, phase 1 comprehensive plan, conditions and issues volume, community survey.
So this is the work order for the first portion of the project that would begin next year. The scope of services that highlight, basically that it's a full update of the 2015-16 conditions and issues volume. Staff will be doing the maps again. Nate and Will have done the maps in the past for us. There'll be some minor amendments to the Parks and Recreation chapter that will update to things that have happened or will be happening next year. And then also looking at the other chapters, Mark's proposing, we do have a broadband chapter, which is in volume 3. we actually have a broadband plan. Um, So you're looking to fold that into the utilities chapter instead of having that plan, correct?
That's my proposal. I think, the broadband plan was created and actually brought quite a bit of money to bring
Right.
high-speed internet south of 29.
Right.
But it's probably served its purpose. While broadband is important, having it be a subcomponent of the utilities chapter probably makes more sense and will be cheaper than fully updating the plan
Correct.
as a separate document as well.
And then we'll also be working on the public participation portion. So we did have a survey that was done the last time. We'll be looking at redoing that and potentially doing some other activities. Some of you may remember, I think we had planning commission and the board together, opened it up to the public. We only had a couple of people attend. But basically kind of a brainstorming session on, what do you want the village to look like in the next 20, 30 years? So, but that will be phase one.
Okay. Do we need to,
So it's all budgeted for next year. So this is just, the scope would have to be signed by Mark, so it'll be going to the board next week too, but.
can we make it a point to include in this document that the photos get updated?
Photos, you
Yes.
got it.
All right,
I'll actually add that before it gets signed.
all right, thank you. Do we need to approve this? Okay.
Yeah.
It's your pleasure.
I'll move to recommend approval of the scope. The comprehensive plan update is outlined in work order number 20.
Motion by Bumper,
Second.
second by Hoffman on the question. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
I,
Opposed? So carried. Item number 12, discussion and recommendation to the BOT on project number 2024-0406 certified survey map for dedication of road right of way for Ryan Street Trailhead.
So this is a project that Michael has been working on for some time with the condo association down at the end of Ryan Street by the Eau Claire River Trail. So essentially, the parking area that's down there for the trailhead, we can't technically access it from public property. You can, but the road isn't built. So he's been working with them to basically obtain access through parcel 2 and parcel 3. So
That one is also updated.
I'm sorry, I should.
It does look very nice though now, as it is.
So that was what was on the counties. I don't know. I think that's 20. Is it 20 photos? So it probably is updated, but
They just finished it.
Oh, did they?
They just finished it within the last few weeks.
I should have had
Yeah.
a drone photo then.
It was, yeah.
But essentially, this needs to go to the village board for them to adopt it by resolution because they are basically taking over road right of way. So therefore it comes before you guys. I did hand out the resolution that would go to the board. So I was working on it today. I do not think that a development agreement is required, but that was something that was on one in the past. So I just left it in for now. I just said if required, the execution of a development agreement. And then just some standard language that we had on there, in the past. To go along with the resolution. So I did not have that in the packet because I had not started working on that for the meeting, but.
okay,
So I would ask that your recommendation have those 3.
I'll move to recommend approval to the Board of Trustee of the CSM as presented.
Okay, motion by Zagami,
Second.
second by Mumper on the question. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So carried. Staff reports, item number 13, acknowledge and place on file the November 2024 staff approved certified survey maps and site plans.
Just acknowledge that, right?
Correct.
I'll move to acknowledge.
Motion by Zagami,
Second.
second by Mumper. On the question? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? So carried. Number 14, acknowledge and place on file the November 2024 building permits.
To acknowledge.
Motion by Mumper,
Second.
second by Hoffman. On the question? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. 15, acknowledge and place on file November 2024 project update report.
Move to acknowledge. Nice job.
Thanks, it's always on there.
Motion by Zagami,
Second.
second by Mumper. On the question. Fuzzy's Taco Shop can probably come off of there.
Yeah, well, that happened before. I had it done. Yes, and the sign they fixed. We had sent a notification because they just basically ground it off and tipped it over, so. And it was laying there for 2 days, but
Everything's off the building now,
yeah.
everything.
I haven't even driven by. Let's go look. Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? So carried. Miscellaneous 16 announcements and committee commissioner remarks and staff referrals. Roy, you have anything?
Just thank you to Jim for that detailed reading. That was,
I had 2 more pages, but. Boy.
did your notes.
Gary's got a question. I don't know if we're gonna get him on the phone, but it's about that plan that Bill Burton submitted. He said that there may be some confusion there. So do we want to get him on the phone and clarify that? He had texted me in regards to that.
Right now, we might really get him on the phone tonight, can we?
I don't, it might be something that he
No, I'll
needs to
have to-
handle with
I'll
staff.
have to talk to him.
Okay, I'll just let him know that you'll reach out tomorrow or reach out.
I don't know what his confusion would be.
Well, he sent me a text at 6:59, which I didn't see it. He said, not sure why they're bringing the development plan in 2025 came from. I never said that. And if Bill in my office mentioned it to Jen, that's not the case until we get some lower price building for First Supply. So I don't know what that.
No, we
He
don't,
had just talked about plans for it, so
Okay.
that's not a big deal.
we hadn't received any other site plan for it
No.
other than the use of that existing building.
Yeah,
Okay.
and as long as they don't put a storage yard out there, they don't have to come back in for anything, so.
It's, we're gonna accommodate all the Village of Weston residents, and we're gonna put one big storage lot there for
Yeah.
campers and motorhomes, you know, all that
UTVs,
stuff.
ATVs.
3 feet off the lot line.
4 stories tall. I'm just kidding.
You're building the stacks?
That's all I had then.
Hushang, anything?
No, thank you.
The only remark I have is Merry Christmas to everybody if I don't see you. Happy New Year's.
Yeah, Merry Christmas.
Next regular meeting will be Monday, January 13th, 2025 at 6 PM. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Mumper, second by Hoffman. On the question. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. We're adjourned at